Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy, and I am not joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt, but I am joined, as recently usual, by my co-host, my cousin, Eli. Eli, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I've had a good start to a long weekend. Had a good Thanksgiving. I made Thanksgiving pizza, which is a little unconventional. One of the pizzas.
What goes on a Thanksgiving pizza? I was going to say, is it a lot of turkey or is it turkey sausage or?
No. I did just stick with traditional pizza. So I had a cheese pizza, a mortadella and prosciutto pizza, and then a onion and mushroom pizza, and then one pizza got sacrificed to the pizza peel, became a calzone. So we had a little bit of a sticking issue on pizza number one, but still turned out edible.
I was going to say, pizza to calzone is not the worst sacrifice to be made. I am a good fan of calzones. I had Thanksgiving baked ziti. I made NATO's baked ziti recipe.
Great.
I did hot turkey sausage to make it at least somewhat turkey-y. Okay. And then unfortunately the mushrooms I had gotten had gone bad, so I didn't risk it on that one. But so we did peppers, turkey sausage, onion, and then cheese, tomato sauce, and mozzarella. But yeah,
pretty good.
A couple of non-conventional Thanksgiving dinners, but still, somewhat Thanksgiving-y. We are here, though, today to talk about something else that happened on Thanksgiving, which is the Packers' 30-17 win over the Miami Dolphins. Packers moved to 9-3, still sixth in the NFC because these other teams refuse to lose. Very cool of them. But we are here to talk all about that. Before we do, though, just to pitch a couple of things. If you want to subscribe, we would really appreciate it. Leave a review, leave a comment, whether that's Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, or all three, if you're really feeling yourself. And then, if you want to follow us on Twitter, at FatherSonPacker, we'll keep you updated on all the injury reports, roster moves, whenever we have new episodes out, content from other Packers content creators. Once again, that's at FatherSonPacker, so check us out there. So, this game, Eli, before we get to anything, we should probably start with the bad news, which is a quick injury update. Jair Alexander did not play in this game, nor did Edgerrin Cooper. Seems like they're still working back from stuff. During the game, Corey Ballantyne left the game with a knee injury, unfortunately, on the opening kickoff. So that's not ideal. And then Aaron Mosby also left the game to be evaluated with a concussion. I did not see him return, but I also didn't see him on any further injury reports. So that's going to be one to keep an eye on. But bad news out of the way. Gut check. How did you feel about this game during watching it, immediately after watching it? What were your emotional reactions to this one?
So a quick question on the Ballantyne injury. Was that like a contact, like a knee-to-knee impact injury, or was it a twisting?
It looked like a knee-to-knee, but also a bit of a kind of bent back a little funny on him. Okay. It didn't look great. I guess we'll see on Monday what it's going to look like on that injury report, because we're going into a Thursday, so we don't get a long break on this one, unfortunately, but we will the next one. But at least, we'll see on Monday coming up for the Lions game this coming week, which would be very important, especially because we're getting a little thin at corner with, Jair out and then maybe Ballantyne out as well.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So my gut check is, we were maybe a little too nervous going into this game, and it turns out that snow is real.
Yep.
The Dolphins team looked like they were playing kind of soft and didn't really weren't as physical as the Packers in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that narrative about them playing in the cold could be very true. I certainly didn't see anything to contradict it on Thursday.
Yeah, I have three things. One, I don't know if Tua came into the game saying I'm ready to kill that narrative. I think at some point it's not a narrative anymore. It just is what it is. My second point is, did you see the thing during the broadcast where they were the Miami equipment staffers said they brought 3,500 pounds of winter equipment? And that's when I knew that they were in trouble. Because I was like, there's no way. If you're thinking about it that much, you're in trouble. Because there's no way. They were they brought neoprene, scuba suit stuff, extra jackets, extra heaters, extra, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, okay.
Thinking about the scuba equipment, I'm like, oh, they're cooked.
Yeah, it was I was like, that's not actually a good thing. You should not be planning that much. Because also, it was 26 degrees. Yes, right. It's cold, but it's not that cold. Like, if they wanted to bring 3,500 pounds of stuff for their game against Kansas City last year when it was -4 Fahrenheit, 100%, totally makes sense. It's 26 degrees.
If people are losing fingers, like, sure, you can plan ahead, but this is just like, you could walk to people were walking to class in shorts in this, like, no problem in Green Bay. Like, they don't even care.
And then the final thing, I was going to say, did you see the Josh Jacobs quote where he was like, them boys look cold out there?
Yeah.
After the game. I was like, they did. Because opening the game, they showed a shot of Tyreek Hill on the sideline, which also, Tyreek Hill played in Kansas City. So I don't understand why, like, the cold. Anyway, but they showed a shot of Tyreek Hill on the sideline. And I was like, wow, it looks so cold. They showed, like, the whole Dolphins sideline. I was like, dang, it looks, like, really cold. It looks like I think it's like with the wind chill, it's probably colder than 26. And then it goes immediately over to the Packers sideline, and none of them are wearing sleeves, and they're all just standing there like milling around. I was like, oh, okay, all right, cool, very cool. But yeah, my main gut check reaction for this one was just, this is a really good and really physical win, which you love to see. Maybe could have been a bit better in the second half. You know, they end up winning 30-17, but they lose the second half 14-6. But still, I would say quite a good win from Green Bay in this one for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think that second half play might have been strategic in some ways, and we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, I just, they had it at the 1 yard line about to make it a 1-score game. Like, it was semi, like, it could have been close. They kind of let them back into it. Like, if they were able to, I know they didn't, and obviously ifs and buts and whatever, but if they had been able to punch that in, like, and get the 2-point conversion, it's an 8-point game with, a lot of time left, with like almost a whole quarter left. So that was the one thing, is the second half was maybe a little bit, they let their foot off the gas maybe a little early. But let's move into talking about this game in earnest. Biggest moment of the game by ESPN win probability was the muff punt. That was kind of what we felt going into it before we even looked it up. It swung the game 10.4% in favor of Green Bay from a 64.8% chance to a 75.2% chance of winning. And it definitely felt like, after the Packers went 3 and out, I was like, dang. And they almost had that fumble, which, thank goodness Jordan Love's hands are massive because he was able to hold on to that ball. And it definitely felt like after that 3 and out, I was like, what an ugly possession, like giving it right back to them. And then they muffed that punt, and I was like, thank you, Miami. Very, very cool.
Yeah, really, really helped the vibes of that game to not be in a deep deficit after that 3 and out. It would have been pretty demoralizing to start out with a failed drive, and then if we had gotten scored on immediately, that would have, I think, changed the whole trajectory of the game. And I think we were able to play comfortably and play to our strengths as a result of this. So I was kind of shocked to see that we were given a 70% chance to win right out of the gate, and that it only dropped by 6% after that first drive. But
we were joking.
Punt, I think we were in the shape we needed to be to recover and turn it into our game.
Yeah, we were joking, like, the win probability was still like 65% after we gained -4 yards and went 3 and out on the first possession. It's like, we were just joking that Vegas was like, no, yeah, that's fine. We're all right with that. But
this is what a Packers opening drive looks like.
Like, yeah, we're give it a few more of these and maybe we'll get concerned, but for now, whatever. Yeah. But then it immediately swung back in favor of the Packers. They, score there on third down. So they actually almost didn't score there, but they get that third down touchdown to Jaden Reed, keep their foot on the gas. It's 24-3 at halftime. Really, the Packers never looked back from that muff punt at that point. But let's start off on the offensive side of the ball, Eli. And we'll start off with the good things on offense. Not a whole lot of bad things on offense, honestly, to talk about. But in this game, what stood out to you on the offensive side of the football?
So the just two small things for me. One is there were a couple of very good quick passes. So we talked a little bit in the pregame about how we haven't seen a ton of quick passes out of Jordan Love. And we did have a couple of those this time. Wicks caught one, and there was one to Tucker Kraft as well. That it's like, before the defense has a chance to get anything set up, it's just pure instinct, first look, get it there. And those were both good for first downs and really helped move things along.
Yeah, and also the second touchdown, Jaden Reed, also a great example of, a nice little quick out where great blocking from Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks on that play as well. That was another example of getting the ball out quick. And that was something I think we talked about 2 episodes ago where we
Oh,
talked
maybe
about
that was
how,
it.
yeah, Jordan Love this season was like 26th by EPA per dropback on throws under 2.5 seconds. Like, really, the quick game had not been very good for Green Bay so far this year, whether it was Love or whether it was the scheme. But it was definitely cooking in this one. And I also just thought Love in general was really good in this one. I mean, he was 21 of 28 for 274 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 turnover-worthy plays, 0.39 EPA per dropback, which would be the best in the league over the course of a season. I mean, I thought he was just on fire in this one, and maybe could have even had even more. I mean, he had that one miss to Jaden Reed on the first drive of the game, I believe it was, where, you know, he's stepping up in the pocket and he just kind of overshoots him a little bit. Had the one drop from Wicks in the middle of the field that almost turned into a pick. Shout out to Christian Watson for playing a little bit of defense. But overall, I just thought he was awesome in this game.
Yeah, and I think like they strategized a little bit around Miami's weakness at cornerback. So Miami had a couple injuries at corner, and we were able to pick on poor Storm Duck.
Storm Duck, what
game.
A name! What an awesome name.
So all but 2 of Love's completed passes were inside 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So a lot of nice, like, easy, short completions. You know, not getting help from safeties, just, you know, picking on those, you know, third string corners, and we made it work. It worked well for us.
And on those short passes, I just wanted to shout out the Packers pass catchers because they did an awesome job after the catch in this game. Of the Packers, just a number for you from PFF, of the Packers' 274 receiving yards, 187 of those were after the catch. Packers pass catchers forced 10 missed tackles, which is the most for the Packers on the season in any single game. So, I mean, I think Jacobs himself, I think if I remember correctly, forced 7 of those. He was a monster catching the football, but so was Kraft. He was running through faces. So was Reed. He forced a bunch of missed tackles on that run as well that he had. We finally had an end around, not go for negative yards. That was a nice little change of pace for us after like 5 straight weeks of like losing 4 yards every time we ran one of those. But yeah, like you mentioned, when they hit underneath, the pass catchers were able to create more. And then when the ability, like the option to hit downfield was there, whether it was actually both of them were really to Watson, the one down the right sideline and then the one down the left sideline, like Jordan Love took those opportunities as well. I thought it was a really just clean game from the offense overall. And also Love was really helped out by the pass blocking being really good in this game. Just a 17.9% pressure rate allowed, only 5 total pressures. I mean, that's just a really solid day from the pass protecting unit.
Yeah, none of those converted into sacks, right?
Yeah, no sacks on the day. It was just it was a really clean day from pass protection. There were a couple times where I think he took 1 or 2 hits on the day.
Yeah, including the one on the first drive. The almost interception.
Almost fumble. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully he was able to just hold on by the tips of his fingers. But yeah, I mean, it was just a really good day from everyone on the offense, I felt like. I also wanted to shout out, Kraft, Jacobs, and Reed all really showed their physicality just on the day, and I think really set the tone for the offense. And I also just wanted to shout out on offense, the end of half sequence was fantastic. I mean, for them to steal 3 points there at the end, it's 22 seconds left. They're on their own 39, and they get a 17-yard pass to Kraft, who runs over Jalen Ramsey, which is fantastic. You love to see it. Out to the Miami 44, out of bounds. Clock stops at 15 seconds. Then you get a 9-yard pass to Kraft in the middle of the field for all the way to the Miami 35, and then you take a timeout with 8 seconds left. And then Chris Brooks run up the middle for another 8 yards to the Miami 28, timeout with 3 seconds left, 46-yard field goal, good. Just super clean, super calm, just methodical. I just thought that was a really awesome end of sequence to the first half.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Anything else on the offense positively you wanted to touch on, though? I could go on about, they weren't able to run it super well on the day overall, like down to down. I think Jacobs only ended up averaging like 3-some odd yards per carry. It felt like it was better than that, though. I don't know. Did you feel the same way?
So I was looking at that a little bit, because PFF graded this game as a better running game than our one against the Niners, which
which is weird.
At least statistically isn't the case, but it never really felt, at least in the first half, that we were overly prevented from accomplishing what we were trying to. And I'm especially some of the the run by Chris Brooks was an unexpected bonus there.
And Chris Brooks' revenge game too, as he was on the Dolphins earlier this year.
Yep.
And I did think the only run I can remember to my, they had a couple of where they were getting stuffed at 1 and 2. The one that really sticks out to me as being a big negative is that third and 1, where they get stuffed for a 3-yard loss. And it was pretty clear that if they hadn't lost yards there, they probably would have gone for it on 4th and 1. But instead it's 4th and 4 and they're forced to punt. That was the only time where I was like, dang, we didn't get any push there. We got absolutely blown up on that play.
Yeah.
And then also the goal line touchdown to Jacobs. I mean, the D lineman just decides to go for Love instead. For some reason, I don't entirely know why. But he was in the backfield in about half a second. I don't know which one. I think it was Elton just didn't get off the ball fast enough. But that was the other one where I was like, ooh, not the best blocking, but we made it work there.
Yeah. And I another no interception week, which is wonderful. And I think that might have contributed to our kind of slovenly second half offense. Is we were just trying to avoid giving up big turnovers. So we might have played overly conservative to avoid that kind of happenstance. But no interceptions is still a good day.
Yeah, no interceptions and not even any turnover-worthy plays for Love on the day. So that was really good to see. I did get a little bit nervous on that, the quick out to Jaden Reed in the flat that was like this close to being a fumble 6. I was like, please have been a forward pass because there's no way we just let them back in the game on this. But thankfully we did not. But yeah, I was just looking again at the numbers. Jacobs had 19 carries for 43 yards, which is actually only 2.3 a carry, and his long was an 11-yard carry. So outside of that 11-yard carry, he had 18 carries for 32 yards, which is really bad. That's less than 2 a carry. So, I mean, it felt better than that. So the rushing success rate was actually like 40%. So that's like pretty close to league average and pretty close to the Packers average on the season. So not too bad. The other running backs though, were, they just hit a ton of explosive plays. Chris Brooks had 3 carries for 28 yards and Emmanuel Wilson had 2 carries for 20 yards. And then Jaden Reed had 1 carry for 23 yards. So they got their explosives other places. Jacobs was kind of grinding out yards. Jacobs really did more of his damage in the passing game. He had, 4 catches for 74 yards to second on the team only to Kraft. Yeah. But yeah, so anything negative on the offensive side that you wanted to talk about in terms of things you thought Packers could have maybe done better?
So unlike the game we had against the Niners where we really held the ball once we got that lead, we didn't do that as much in this game. Our offensive drives were pretty quick and not a lot of plays. So it could just be lack of success that led to that. But our defense did a better job of burning clock than our offense did for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was one drive specifically that I totally agree with that on. There was it's 27-11, so it's a 16-point game. The game is not quite, the game is not over and you're taking your foot off the gas there. There's 2 minutes and 9 seconds left in the third quarter, or 2:43 left in the third quarter, sorry.
Yep.
And they end up going 4 plays, 17 yards punt. And that's the one where Jacobs loses 2 yards on that 3rd and 1 and they're forced to punt there. But yeah, on that one, they go, I don't hate the process of running there on 3rd and 1. They just needed to execute it better, I feel like. And maybe they could have chewed more clock there. But yeah, they end up losing the time of possession battle in this game. And honestly, I actually maybe put that a little bit more on the defense. I thought the defense just totally softened up in the second half of this game. I don't know how you felt about it.
So I actually felt okay about it. So this feels like the Packers defense that we're used to seeing, but when it's only a one-score game rather than a three-score game.
But is it good that it feels like the Packers defense that we're used to seeing? I don't know if it is.
So the two big Miami drives of the second half was 5 minutes to score 5 minutes, 8 plays to score a touchdown. And if they're taking 5 minutes on 8 plays, I feel like that means that the Packers defense is doing something right. We were keeping the ball away from the sidelines. We were keeping it towards the middle of the field. So it is true that this could have been a closer game had they just completed on that 3rd and 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1 in the fourth quarter, but the defense made them use clock in order to score. They weren't blowing us, and especially this Miami offense, which is capable from scoring anywhere on the field. We made them not do that.
Yeah, I just think, they definitely did a really good job of keeping a lid on that. I just felt like we got shredded a little in the middle of the field in the second half, and I'm just looking at the drives now. So they come out at halftime. And Miami starts with the ball, 3 plays, 2 yards punt. Great, start to the half. And then you see 8 plays, 70 yards, 5-minute touchdown. 12 plays, 75 yards, 6 minutes. They end up going, second, third, and fourth and goal at the 1 and end up not punching it in. And then 7 plays, 57 or 67 yards touchdown. That doesn't, in 2 minutes, that doesn't really matter that much. The game was pretty much done at that point. But it's those 2 drives after it where it's like, okay, they could have cut that to a 1-score game that I was maybe not feeling great about. But anyway, we can talk about the defense in a second. We have a lot more to talk about there. Anything else on the offense that you wanted to talk about, though, negative, while we're still on it?
That first drive.
Yeah, not great.
If we're at home and playing somebody who's on a short week who had to travel, it feels like we've got to come up with something better than that. And I know there was a penalty, but that's also something that's kind of avoidable.
Yeah. And that drive, just for those of you who don't just have it in front of you, because I already opened it up, is Jacobs up the middle for 1 yard, and then a false start on Kraft to move it to 2nd and 14. And then it's the Jordan Love not quite connecting on that deep ball to Jaden Reed where he's open and he just kind of overthrows him a little bit.
Yep.
And then 3rd and 14 was the almost disastrous sack fumble. And thankfully not a sack fumble.
And even if that had connected, it looked like it was going to be going to the sideline to Kraft at around the line of scrimmage. They weren't going to convert that.
No.
They were still going to be punting.
Yeah, and 3rd and 14, well, apparently Denny Whelan is the best weapon that we have. I mean, Who needs to hit a 50-yard pass when you can just punt it and have the muffet at the 8? That seems like a better option to me even. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, it is hard to convert 3rd and 14, but yeah, like you said, that first drive was not a good way to start the game, and it did not inspire confidence, we'll say. Thankfully, the Dolphins let us right back into it. But yeah, like you mentioned, the only thing I was going to say in the second half was the second half red zone offense was not very good. For the Packers, they made 2 trips down there, were held to 2 field goals, which is not ideal. Obviously, you want to be scoring touchdowns. There was the 1-2, oh goodness, who was it? It was Jaden Reed on an awesome throw from Love, but they end up short of the sticks there. It's 4th and 2, and they end up kicking a field goal. I'm fine taking the points there because you have such a big lead and you want to make it it was a 21-point game. You make it a 24-point game. They have to hit 3 2-point conversions to make it a 3-score game. The math makes sense there. The Dolphins have
not been converting 2-pointers very well this year. They got the one against us, but that was, I think, a rarity.
Yeah, so normally I wouldn't love taking the points there, but it made sense in that instance. And then the other one was Wicks getting stopped right at the goal line, and then Elton takes a penalty he shouldn't have, but they probably would have kicked the field goal anyway to make it, instead of a 16-point game, a 19-point game, make it a 3-score game. Game's pretty much done. But yeah, that was the only thing, is just not punching in those for touchdowns. Wasn't ideal from the offense. It's hard to, nitpick the offense in this one, though. I thought for the most part they were really good.
Yep.
Anything else offensively that you wanted to talk about?
I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the offense was really good in this game. Defense was maybe a little bit more hit and miss. Let's start out with do you want to start with the positives or the negatives on defense? What do you want to start with?
Let's start with the negatives.
Okay, negatives on defense. What were you feeling?
Jonnu Smith did tight end things against us.
I mean, who could have seen this coming?
10 catches for 113 yards. We have a type.
Yep, we do. We have a type, and we will let them, Thankfully, Isaiah McDuffie was available in this game because he played really well. I don't know if he didn't play, I guess it would have been Hopper and Walker out there. I just don't know. Some of those Jonnu Smith yards were in garbage time, but a lot of them weren't. And we just kind of let him do whatever he wanted for most of the game, as we've let a lot of tight ends do whatever they want for most of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and some of them were inside the sticks at least, so it's we made them go for another play, which helped with the clock situation, but still wasn't good. And I'm worried about a lot of the teams that we'd be facing in the playoffs who have dominant tight ends. If we're gonna see Detroit and Sam Laporta again,
that would be tough.
Then again. Worried about that. So hopefully we get some people back from injury, come up with some sort of plan for handling these large pass catching tight ends who can just kind of beat us up.
I mean, the NFC. Yeah, in the NFC, you got Laporta in Detroit. You got Dallas Goedert in Philly. You've got Kyle Pitts in Atlanta.
I don't think we're worried about Kyle Pitts in Atlanta anymore.
Well, I'm just listening. Well, I was about to get to Zach Ertz in Washington if you really were curious. But no, yeah. So it's definitely been a problem. I feel less bad about it in this one though than I did about the San Francisco one, because in San Francisco it's like he's the only guy you got to guard. All you have to do is guard George Kittle, and he's tearing you apart. And then in this one, it was more like, okay, I understand if you want to give more attention to Tyreek and Waddle and you don't want to get beat over the top. Like, I have a little more forgiveness for that than I did for the San Francisco one, where I'm like, guys, it's the only dude you have to guard. What are we doing out here? But yeah, they did not guard Jonnu very well in this game. I just thought, for overall, they just didn't cover the middle of the field well in this game at all. From 10 to 15 yards, this is per PFF. From 10 to 15 yards and between the hashes, Tua went 8 of 10 for 139 yards and a touchdown. Like a dang near perfect passer rating. I mean, he was absolutely shredding them all game long, especially in the second half. And I just thought, so to circle back to what we were talking about earlier, you mentioned like, this looks like the old Packers defense, but we have like, a good number, like a better lead than we would normally have under those circumstances. But I don't think a 16-point lead is safe enough to be like just letting them march at will down the field.
I don't think it was at will. Like, so they were getting 8 and 9 yard plays. There was almost no yards after the catch. We held them to the catch point extremely well. So I think this went completely according to plan.
So looking at that, so I just want to focus on the drive where they ended up going end of downs at the 1 yard line. I just want to peek at that drive for a second. Mm-hmm. So they, on that drive, had 12 plays. They only faced 2 third downs. So they faced so that's including the 3rd and goal at the one where they end up getting stopped. They only faced 1 third down otherwise. They hit passes of 13 yards, 24 yards, 12 yards, 9 yards on 3rd and 6. It just felt like we were especially letting up. Like there was so much space between the linebackers and safeties, it felt like, on almost every single play. And he was just like, Tua wants to throw to the middle of the field. He does not want to throw to the sidelines. And so I could see a scenario where I think I would be more inclined to agree with you if we were playing a quarterback who was more willing to rip throws to the sidelines, where it's like, yeah, you have to guard both. But Tua doesn't want to throw to the sidelines. That was all you had to worry about, was guarding the middle of the field, and you still let him kind of tear you apart there. Mm-hmm. That was kind of my why I felt the way I did about it.
Yeah, I am guessing Matt LaFleur was less nervous than you were during it.
I would say 99% of Packers fans were less nervous than I was during the game. I get very nervous during these games. But yeah, I felt like they just kind of let their foot off the gas a little too quickly in the second half. Mm-hmm. I get like you have a 24-point lead, but once it gets to 16 again, it's like, okay, a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. This is a 1-score game. Like, we're right back to it with a whole quarter to go. Like, they're going to get 2 to 3 more possessions in the fourth quarter. Like, they don't even need to get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion at that point. They could get a touchdown and a field goal and they have the lead. But at the same time, I get what you're saying about, they did have a pretty convincing lead in the second half. So fair enough.
The failed drive ended with 9 minutes left in the game?
They ended up going turnover on downs with 9:33 left in the fourth. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if they had, ifs and buts, but they had they had 1st and goal at the 9 with 11 minutes left. So
okay.
They ended up.
Yeah, I guess if they had converted quickly there, then that would have been a little scarier.
Yeah, but we are doing a lot of the, if this, then that, then they score a touchdown, then they get a stop, then they get a field goal. So I understand a lot of it is just my own anxiety speaking, but I was getting a little bit anxious at the end of that, or not at the end of the game. In the beginning of the fourth quarter, I was like, come on, guys, like, can we just finish this one out? And then the other negative I had was just penalties, and just dumb penalties. We lined up offsides twice. Like, our pass rushers were just lined up in the neutral zone. It's like, just look at the ball. Like, and they did it last week too. And I'm like, okay, guys, just glance at the ball before the ball is snapped and you don't have this problem. But they went offside, neutral zone infraction, offside, and encroachment. So 4 different pre-snap penalties on the defense. that was just not great. Not very
and
clean.
And the one was like Kadarius Toney levels of obvious.
It's just, I'm like looking at the screen. I'm like, does he, like, is the line wrong? Like, he knows he's offsides, right? Like, he's like way offsides.
Yeah.
And one of them took a sack off the board, which would have been a pretty big sack. So that was my only other negative on defense. Did you have anything else on defense you want to talk about there?
That was it for negatives for me on defense.
Okay, what'd you have on the positive side?
We held their run game to
just smothered their run game.
Yeah, just 39 yards on 14 carries. It's the fewest yards and yards per carry since Tua came back. They couldn't get anything going.
Nope.
It was pretty sad.
Yeah, it was very rough. And they don't they're not any slouches back there, in the run game. Achan's having a really good year, and they held them, Achan specifically, 7 carries for 14 yards, 2 a carry. Yeah. I mean, absolutely completely bottled up. And holding them there the funny part was, like, they hold them there at the goal line, and on the second and goal at the 1, they run it, get absolutely stuffed. And you can just see the gears turning in McDaniel's brain, being like, damn, I'm not going to be able to run it again. Like, we cannot get any movement here.
Right. And Mostert's having a very bad season. I think he might be towards the end of his career finally at 32 or 33. I forget how old he is.
It's been a great run. Like that last year for him, like, was a crazy career resurgence I think he was 31 last year, so I think he's 32 this year. I think that sounds right.
Yeah, and last year he led the league in touchdown.
I think that's right. He was, I believe he was first in the league in rushing touchdowns. He was near the top of the league for sure.
Yeah, and has had ridiculous regression since then. And like, he was kind of like, Raheem Mostert is not a power back on any other team except for the Dolphins, where it's like, compared to A-Chain, he is.
Yeah.
But like, they didn't have somebody who could really like hammer through a 1-yard touchdown at the goal.
Yeah. And I saw a lot of Dolphins fans complaining about that, and also bemoaning the fact that Chris Brooks was running all over them. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. And I do think Mostert had an injury earlier in the year, so maybe he's still battling through that. But so maybe he'll bounce back next year, but I guess we'll see. Yeah, the run defense was fantastic in this one. I also wanted to shout out the pass rush. I thought the whole front just played really well the whole game, but to highlight the pass rush really quick, Packers had 5 sacks in this game, and I just want to, do a little bit of a numbers breakdown for you real quick. The actual pressure rate does not look great. It's just 26.9%, which is, would be pretty low on the season, but the underlying numbers are a lot better. What you have to remember is the Dolphins get the ball out so quickly that they really just don't allow many pressures. On the season, they allow just a 25.2% pressure rate, so Green Bay was above their usual pressure rate allowed. And what was really impressive about Green Bay was their time to pressure, which was a blazing 2.28 seconds, which would be fastest in the league by a mile. And yes, some of those were just like Teron Armstead forgets to block Kingsley Enagbare. And, he just sprints right into Tua's back and just sacks him instantly. And yeah, those maybe skew those numbers a little bit, but a lot of those unblocked looks were created by Jeff Hafley and the Packers defense, putting everyone at the line and confusing the Dolphins pass protection scheme. So I thought that was really good. And additionally, another number that highlights how well the Packers rushed the passer is when Tua did hold the ball longer than 2.5 seconds, Green Bay had a pressure rate of 54.5%, which would be 5th best in the league on longer dropbacks. So even if you look at every team's pressure rate on dropbacks over 2.5 seconds, Green Bay would still be top 5 in that number if they had done this for a whole season. So I thought they got home to, got pressure on Tua a lot in this game, specifically in the first half more than the second half, but in the second half too as well. I just thought the pass rush looked maybe the best it's looked since the Texans game. Yeah,
and like very good situational awareness too. There was the one play where it was, I think, Lucas Van Ness against
left tackle or right tackle.
I think it was against Teron Armstead.
Oh yeah, Armstead.
And Tua started climbing up in the pocket, and LVN just turned around and absolutely swallowed him.
Yeah, he was like, it was really good by LVN there to like keep his wits about him. And I also, I have him in the things that made us think, but he might be coming on a little bit. In this game, he had 4 pressures on just 15 pass rush snaps, which is, fantastic.
So PFF credited him for 2 sacks, and ESPN only had 1. Is there like a half sack somewhere that's hiding that I might have missed? I only remember seeing the 1.
That's a good question. I might also, because I'm also only remembering the one where, he gets him on the second move. The thing is, in that last possession, where the clock is running out, they had like 2 or 3 sacks there, like in that possession of just like none of this matters.
Right.
And so I'm having trouble remembering if Lucas Van Ness was one of the guys. I know Brenton Cox had one of those sacks, and I'm trying to remember if Van Ness maybe had another, but maybe they counted them both as halves for ESPN, and PFF doesn't do half sacks. They just give you the full one.
That makes sense.
So it's possible there. And then I did want to just give you one other number that I thought was very interesting. So this was before this game, and we already saw that, LVN had a solid day in terms of pressures and sacks as well. But this was from Jacob Morley on Twitter, @JacobMorley. Pass rush win rate since the Smith trade. So this was after the Preston Smith trade, but before this game on Thanksgiving. This is a minimum of 20 pass rush snaps, and these numbers are per PFF. Lucas Van Ness had a 21.1% pass rush win rate, which is 6th out of 83 edges. Rashawn Gary, 18.8%, 15th out of 83 edges. So they are both top 15 at the position in pass rush win rate since Preston Smith has been traded. And Lucas Van Ness has been fantastic so far since that. So maybe more reps for him has been helping him develop a little bit. Maybe he's getting better. I don't want to, say that he's suddenly, a top 10 pass rusher out of nowhere, because I think that's totally unreasonable. But if he can even be, a top half, top quarter of the league pass rusher, that would be way more contribution than he had been giving like prior to that.
Mm-hmm. And like it could be that he's, just got hot at a good time against a couple teams that we matched up well against. And I'm excited to see how he does against the Lions next week.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's going to be a much bigger test than going against, Teron Armstead's a little bit old, dealing with injury. And before that, it was, I think it's Jalen Moore was backing up Trent Williams. I can't remember exactly who it was who was backing him up at left tackle. But yeah, it hasn't exactly been a murderer's row of left tackles he's going against. So it's definitely going to be more of a test this coming week. But I did just want to highlight that Lucas Van Ness and the pass rush had been better in this game, and also so far over the past few weeks. Anything else on defense you wanted to highlight?
No, I'm ready to move on to special teams.
The one thing I want to say, though, on defense, just one more. I wanted to shout out Isaiah McDuffie, because I thought he was really good in this game. He somehow almost broke up a pass to Tyreek Hill. He almost had it. I don't know how he got stuck guarding a zone with Tyreek Hill in it, but he almost popped it out. And then also, I think it was Achane that he just smoked on like the very, very, perfect form tackle as the ball was getting there, that it popped out.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Achane, but I thought he had a really good day. I thought Quay Walker had a solid day in run defense. I thought the coverage was maybe a little bit iffy, but he was pretty good against the run. And I thought Gary also had a nice day. I thought he created a lot for the rest of the pass rushers. The right tackle, I didn't think had anything for him all day. I thought he was just obliterating him. And but yeah, so I thought there were a lot of players to highlight on the defensive side of the football that I thought had a good day. But moving on to special teams, anything that you wanted to say there?
I'm feeling good about the Packers kicking unit. Both types. I'm very happy with Whelan, and I'm happy with McManus.
All right, quick interruption. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
For the love of God. Yeah. For the love of God, man. Knock on wood. But yeah, no, they've been much cleaner recently.
Yeah, it's nice not being nervous going into those situations. So I'm feeling good about Packers special teams right now.
I don't know if those words have ever been said in that order before, but we will take it. I just wanted to also shout out Robert Rochelle on that coverage there to recover that fumble. And he wasn't even, in the initial, punt gunner team. That normally would be Ballantyne, who was out after that initial kickoff with that injury. So it was, good to see him get in there. And, if he's not able to get down there that fast, it's possible that Malik Washington just falls on that fumble right away, and it's a totally different game. So I thought that was a good job from the Gunners on that one as well. And a nice punt from Whalen to, it's on the punter too, to put that thing up there, give it good hang time, and let the winds take care of the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, making kicks in the cold. I did think that kick was going to squeak out of the lines for a second, but it came right back in, so we'll take it. But yeah, I don't really have anything else on the special teams. Oh, the other thing was opening kickoff. They had a really nice return as well, which was nice, which I think kind of got lost because we immediately went 3 and out, but it was a very nice opening kickoff as well.
Yeah, it was like a 25-ish yard return.
I think no, it was more than
that.
The
45.
Yeah, but I think the kick was out to the 0, so I think it was like a 43-yard return. Yeah. I don't think they pooched it quite that bad. I think it was like a 40-yard return from Nixon, if I remember correctly. But yeah, no, they had it was a very nice return from Nixon. I don't know why teams keep kicking to him. Yeah, to Green Bay, 46 for 43 yards. So yeah, nice play there.
It was 43. Oh, that was a big one.
Yeah. Nice snipe from me, exactly right on the yardage. Shout out to myself. But yeah, so that was really nice. Day for the special teams. Big return, recover the muff fumble. Overall, covered kicks pretty well. Aaron Mosby had a really big tackle on a kick return where, no one blocked him, but he still made the play. So shout out to him.
Right.
Player of the game, who'd you have in this one?
I had Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, fair, very fair.
It feels nice to be on the other end of the tight end that seems to always be open. It's good to have him out there. It's a nice little safety blanket for us as fans and for Jordan Love, I'm sure.
Yeah, tight end who is always open and also somehow impossible to tackle.
Yeah,
I would just such an annoying archetype of player to play against, where it's like. It also feels like the play where we haven't ran it that much this year, but the play action rollout to the right, dump off to the tight end. We ran it once this game, but we ran it to the left. But dump off to the tight end. That play seems to go against the Packers for 18 yards every single time. The Niners run it, and it's nice to have a guy that we can give it to there who will make the first man miss, can't be tackled by corners because they're too small, and that's a free 12 yards. That's really nice to see. My player of the game, though, was Jordan Love. I just thought he was really sensational in this game. Made really good, decisions. Checked the ball down when he needed to. Didn't try and force it too much. No turnover-worthy plays. 2 touchdowns, 270-plus yards passing. Just a really, really good day throwing the football from him. And, if this was, a closer game, probably has even more yards passing, honestly. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout him out. But, yeah, I thought it was a really nice day from Love in this one. Really nice day from a lot of players. Could have said Jacobs with his work in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Could have said Gary. Could have said Van Ness. I thought there were a number of players that you could have highlighted in this one and said I thought Slayton had a really good game as well. And I thought he flashed on a number of plays. He was in there on some third downs even, I think, if I remember correctly, which they hadn't really done much with him in the past. So that was something that was kind of interesting. Maybe they're changing their rotations on the defensive line. So, it hadn't been working before. Maybe they're just trying things. You never know. But yeah, overall, I think there are a lot of players who had really good games in this one. Anyone else, anything else that you want to highlight before we say goodbye to the good people?
So just taking a look at the schedule we have for the rest of the year. So we've got Lions in Detroit. We've got Seahawks in Seattle, Saints at home, Vikings in Minnesota, Bears at home. So I'm happy that we're getting the Lions out of the way now. I am excited to not be thinking about playing against the Lions for anything on the line in Week 18. That sounds dreadful because they're gonna, even if they're in and have whatever they have, they are still gonna absolutely play us to the teeth.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's not something we're gonna have to worry about in Week 18.
Yeah, and I think this will be a really good test for Green Bay because they've looked really good the last 2 weeks and completely, totally out physical the last 2 games that they played. But the, counter argument to that is it was against a Niners team without, a bunch of players, including their starting quarterback, starting left tackle, starting edge rusher, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was against Miami in sub 30-degree temperatures, or honestly, you could even say sub 50 at this point. I'm sorry, Miami, but it just is what it is. And so I think that, they've looked really good in these past 2 games. How is it going to translate against a top of the line, arguably best team in the NFL team?
Right.
I think you would argue, I think most people would argue they are the best team in the NFL. They are the cream of the crop.
The Lions have the second best point differential for an 11-1 team of the last
of all time.
30 years.
Same thing, yeah.
Since I was born, since 1991, the Redskins are the number 1 team for point differential, and the current last place team for point differential for an 11-1 team is the Kansas City Chiefs.
And it is so, I'm shocked it's not that 11-1 Steelers team. I am absolutely stunned it is not that 11-1 Steelers team.
Yeah, they're somehow more fraudulent than that.
And the thing is, they're probably still going to win the Super Bowl. That's the wild part. Somehow it's gonna be a somehow Palpatine returned, and we're just not even gonna. It's just whatever at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, tough schedule coming up though for Green Bay. 3 different division games, 2 of them on the road. You got to play the Seahawks as well, who are looking like they're picking up steam right now. They're currently leading the NFC West right now. But yeah, and then, the Saints, it's on a Monday night. You never know. They seem to be better since Rizzy took over. So they've been weird. They'll hit a hot streak because, they started off the season 2-0, then they lost. I think it was 7 straight. Now they've won a couple. But so yeah, some tough competition still on the table for Green Bay, but hopefully they're able to, keep building on the success they've had the last 2 weeks. But anyway, that does it for us for this recap of the Packers Thanksgiving Day win over the Miami Dolphins 30-17. Like we mentioned earlier, Packers moved to 9-3. Still stuck at 6th in the TAM NFC because no one else is going to lose apparently.
Yeah.
And still stuck at 3rd in the NFC North because none of those teams want to lose either.
The Bears really tried to help us, and then Matt Eberflus said, nah.
Yeah, we're good. And then they promptly fired him the next day.
Yeah. We don't have to play against the Bears during the
dead coach bump.
The dead coach bump. Yeah. We get them during the post coach slump.
Yeah, I mean they did really try and help us. They had the Lions, like they almost had them. They were right there. They weren't quite as close to having the Lions as they were to having us, but they were right there.
Right.
But yeah, so a lot of games still to play. The NFC North is still on the table for Green Bay, but it's going to take some work. But anyway, thank you again so much for listening. Please check us out on socials at FatherSonPacker on Twitter. Please like and subscribe and comment, et cetera, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Thank you again so much for listening. We'll be bringing you a post game from this, or another pregame actually, for the Lions game next week, and then et cetera down the line. You know the schedule. But once again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.